When I was a child, I used to have the strangest dreams. I would find myself in sun-drenched playing fields with a 6-year-old African girl. Her hair in twists, clad in red and white checkered grin and roper. Eventually, her father, an enormous dusty farmer fellow, equipped with a pitchfork and leading a horse, would call her home. She would wave goodbye, and I would seize awake. I had this dream several times, each time similar. The only difference being the game we played. Perhaps ball, perhaps hunting for insects, or simply lazing around in the grass. I knew her name was Sarah. I knew her family worked on the land. Somehow, I knew the land. Then one night I had a lucid dream. I was in my bed and thought it was the middle of the night. Light steamed into the room as if it were noon, and Sarah was by my bed, tugging at my nightgown sleeve. She pleaded with me to get up and play with her, and followed her out of my room to the particular set of stairs leading to the spooky 3rd floor. I was suddenly leaden with dread, a feeling akin to seeing that particular look in my mother's eyes before she told me that my great-grandmother had died. Sarah whirled around, eyes inquisitive, her playful demands to come upstairs to play, honed by something sinister. Her father appeared at the top of the stairwell, horse and all I could think,
"This is ridiculous. How could a horse go up all those stairs?"
I told her I could not, and I would not go up and play with her. She looked at me so sadly, the saddest, oldest sad I have ever seen. I woke up that morning, asleep at the foot of the stairs, filled with the deepest sadness I had ever felt. I never had the dream again. However, shortly after, the gardens unearthed an old hitching post in the backyard. Many years later, I went for a hike across my street in search of an apocryphal graveyard, the oldest freed black cemetery in the north. I waded through the smallish swamp in my neighbour's yard and trudged up the hill to the area I had seen marked on an ancient map. There was a cemetery, invisible from the road, with 15 or so headstones. Whilst many of them were impossible to read and others fallen and broken, one stood out. Its memorial tree had grown around it, encasing the stone in the tree, shielding it from the elements. The body beneath was named Sarah. She died at the age of 7, and had inhabited whatever structure existed where my house now stands.
When I was about 17, I was at my friend's apartment building, which his parents owned. We had an apartment to hang out in on the top floor, and we used to go out to the roof to smoke. That night, we were about to go up, but I had to use the restroom, so I told him I'd meet him there. After I was done, I went up to the stairs to the attic portion that was connected to the roof. There were no lights, so we always used our phones to guide us. It was an old building and the attic was creepy and cluttered all the time. As I made my way to the roof, I saw a shadow pass by me. I followed the direction it went, thinking it was my friend. I kept saying that I knew it was him and to stop playing around. Passed me a few more times when I heard my friend's voice from downstairs. He got a call from his girlfriend and was in another room talking to her the whole time. I have no idea what that shadow figure was, and I still refused to go back up to the roof at night after that.
So I work in a factory making rope. A bit odd I know, but bear with me. I've worked here for about 4 years now, and I've had some strange encounters which I might one day get around to typing. But for now, I'll just tell you the one that frightened me and amazed me the most. Now, quick bit of backstory. Because of the age of the building, people tell me that a lot of people must have died in here, because this is way before the days of health and safety. we have open machinery running all day. But actually, there've only been 2 deaths of which I know. One guy went headfirst over a rope wheeler. His hand got snagged on a bit of rope sticking out, and it pulled him in. He hit his head on the floor when he went over and broke his neck. The other guy hung himself in the stairwell to the loft. So recently I was working on the same reeler that this guy died on, which isn't weird. We use it every day almost, and it was over 30 years that he died. I was on my own listening to my music with my headphones on when I saw my colleague, Clive. He walks through the door and comes to stand next to me, watching what I was doing. Because of the danger of this machine, we tend not to interrupt each other whilst we're working on it. So I carried on working. Suddenly, something snagged on the back of my hand, and I felt the pressure of the rope pushing down on my fingers in a vice-like grip. So, this next bit happened in a few seconds, but it felt like forever. Anyway, I tried to pull my hand away, but it was too late. I felt my body get pulled towards the machine, and then I felt something hard smack me in the chest, and the pressure lifted from my fingers. I was free, standing upright, and the machine was still going. So I hit the big red stop button and looked at the machine, then turned and looked at Clive. He was white. I know from experience that Clive does not believe in anything paranormal, but he just stood there in silence. "What the?" I said.
It looked like something just hit you in the chest.
He sort of trailed off. We talk about it sometimes. What happened? Why and if it was the guy who died previously on that machine. I don't know the guy's name that died, but if it was him, I'd like to thank him. I tend to say hello now when I'm in that area, just in case he's there, so he knows he's not forgotten. Thank you, ghost guy.
My name is Emily. When I was around 12 or so, I remember spending the night at my friend's house. For privacy concerns, we'll call her Rose. Rose and I did everything every preteen girl does. Go to the park, eating junk food, painting our nails, etc. Sometime before we went to sleep, Rose's neighbor came over. We'll call this girl Jay. After some talking with the parents, they decided to allow Jay and her brother sleep over too. We all went to bed and obviously we were all on our phones instead of sleeping. It was around midnight when Jay and Rose just happened to mention that the night might get a little interesting. Jay went into a story about how, ever since she was small, a shadow had been following her. She described it as really short and extremely skinny. She then added that its eyes went all the way through its head. I called bullshit and proceeded to joke about it. I began to tease the shadow by saying,
"Oh, what a stupid joke. What are you gonna do to me? Come on, come and get me."
That was probably the worst mistake I've ever made. Almost immediately after I stopped teasing it, the room grew colder. We all got back under the covers into our phones. Suddenly the cold was unbearable. We all began to shiver and held onto each other for warmth. We had all linked hands and held as a sense of danger washed over us. I gasped as I felt a cold, bony finger poke my leg. I immediately thought my friends were playing a bad joke on me. I asked the Rose and Jay if they had poked me and they said no. They couldn't have anyways. I began to get scared. I was starting to believe in this shadow creature my friend talked about. It was around 1 in the morning and at this point I was exhausted. I had to wake up early the next morning for a family event. After a while I managed to fall asleep, only to be woken 20 minutes later. Rose felt a hand press into her thigh, the cold, bony fingers that touched me. I was a full believer of the shadow creature, the cold room, the ghostly hand. It was all too real. I squeezed my eyes closed, hoping I would fall asleep and this would all be over in the morning, or better yet, I dreamt it all. But no, Rose had an old television on a TV tray in her room. Her room was pretty small, so the TV tray was near her bed. An hour later, at 2 in the morning, the TV tray broke, meaning that the huge old television fell into the bed, pulling off the blankets and dragging Jay down with it. We all screamed in fear and woke everyone in the house. Jay's brother and Rose's dad came into the room to see Jay on the floor and a pair of scared kids on the bed. We explained what had happened, but Rose's dad told us to knock it off and to go to sleep. Jay's brother stayed with us for a couple minutes to investigate what the TV tray had broken. He concluded that someone had kicked it, but nobody could have kicked it. We were all in bed and the door was closed. We all went to sleep at 3 a.m. In the morning, it was all over, almost as if nothing had happened the night before. The shadow continued to follow me home that day though. Sometimes I see it in my doorway, peeking in or at the foot of my bed. It makes me feel safe.
I used to and still am a Scouts leader, and each year we go during the New Year period to camping sites. Being in Canada, New Year weather is pretty damn cold, think -20 to -30, so camping is done in lodges. The lodge which we slept in had no toilets, so each night before we went to bed, I'd round up my scouts and walk them to the bathroom, which happened to be in another lodge about a minute's walk away. That year, I happened to have 2 really immature kids, and they were taking way too much time to get ready. So I sent my scouts to the washroom and told them that I'd like to catch up with them once the 2 guys would stop mucking around. A few minutes later we were on our way, and by then most of the children had already brushed their teeth and been to the toilet. When I finally entered the lodge, I can see that most of them had congregated around the vending machine in the hallway across the toilet. So I entered the toilet with the 2 kids that were with me, and I checked to see if anyone is still in there.
Is anyone in the toilet?
I yell into the stalls.
Yes.
I recognize the voice of Jay, one of my scouts. Then I proceed to brush my teeth. A few minutes later I said again,
Is everything good?
Yes.
This time I recognize the voice of another kid, W. At that moment I make nothing of it, and assume I just misheard the voice the first time round. Another couple of minutes have passed, and even the 2 difficult kids I was there with had finished preparing themselves. So I ask again,
Is everything good?
Nothing this time. So I asked the 2 other kids to start opening the stalls and see if something has happened to W. There were about 8 stalls, all of which were empty. The 2 kids started freaking out, because they too had heard these voices. And since they'd been using the sink, which was right next to the door, there was no way that someone could have passed without being noticed. So I send them to the shower stalls again. No one. The 2 kids were now becoming very agitated, so I decided it's time to regroup in the hallway to head back. Back in the hallway, I see both J and W, who both deny having entered the washrooms after I came in. To this day, my scout squadron refers to this incident as the poop monster incident. Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. You asked for it, and you got it. The winner of this channel's first poll was indeed Ghost Stories. If you're a bit disappointed because you're expecting Skinwalkers though, don't worry, it's in the works. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Death and Terror for his help in this video. He is the host of an up and coming top 5 channel which you need to check out. We made a video over on his channel about something which I personally find incredibly fascinating, and I know you guys will love it. It's the top 5 creepiest ghost towns. So click the link on screen now to check it out. Go on, you know that you don't want to miss it. Or if you just come from his channel, why not stick around to listen to some more creepy true stories? Don't forget to spam that like button, and let's see if we can get to 100 likes. Anyway, regarding the Skinwalker video, I have 7 stories to tell at the moment, but I wasn't sure if I should just use 5 stories and leave the other 2 for a second Skinwalker video in future, when I have more stories. So I suppose the question really is, do you guys want an extra long Skinwalker video with all 7 stories, or one with 5? Let me know in the comments and I'll get to work. Also remember that if you have a story you wish to submit, send it over to my email in the description and you can have it featured on a future video. Just remember to say that you give me your consent to use it though. And thanks to everyone who's already sent theirs in, they're all really good and I can't wait to feature them on the channel. But anyway, for now guys, I'm going to sign off. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.